So till today we have covered up to the sensors. In the previous class we have discussed various types of sensors. So sensors are the devices which can detect, measure the physical quantities, and also they can convert and through they can send it for further processing to the locations wherever it is required. So today we will see the different types of actuators which are mentioned in your syllabus, and before that let us see how the sensors and actuators are associated with each other. So as you can see in this diagram that the sensors and actuators are two different components and may be located at different positions, or they may be present in the same unit also, but they can be located separately also, but one is supporting the other and one is making room for the other to work. So they always work in association with each other, and we can see the differences between these two also, but let us see first again the function of the sensor. Sensors can measure or monitor the conditions of the equipment, whereas the actuators drive the events within the equipment. So when sensors are available with the IoT based application or a system, then what is the need of the actuators? Actuators are also the devices similar to the sensors, but only sensors do not suffice, because sensors can sense, can detect, can measure the physical quantity, but it requires a drive force. So that function is done by the actuators. Actuators really drive the events that should happen in the IoT based application or IoT based system. So that is the basic difference we can say between the sensors and the actuators. Now that is what I told you, both may be present in the same area or both may be located in the same area, or else they can be located far away. This is not compulsory that every time sensors and the actuators should be together in the same area. And sensor actually it changes a physical parameter into an electrical output. This is one more difference we can say. Sensors convert the physical parameter or the physical phenomenon into an electrical output, whereas the actuator is a device which converts an electrical signal into a physical output. So in any IoT based system, we can say that we should have both the sensor as well as the actuator. So this tells us why actuators are necessary. Actually, they are going to drive the events that will occur, that can occur through the IoT applications or through the IoT based system. So one should have the different types of sensors and the actuators, and the use of or the selection, the choose of the sensors and the actuators depends on the application, need of application. But they go hand in hand as it is showed in the diagram. Then actuator, we can also call it as a transducer, because it converts the one parameter from one form to another form. And there are two types of actuators basically. One is the binary actuator and the second is the continuous actuator. So the output of these actuators can be present in different forms, like for example it can represent some discrete values, or else the output signal may be continuous in nature, like the analog signal. So that is why, based on how many number of states present in the output, in that particular output, we can classify them as either binary actuator or the continuous actuator. So the example for a binary actuator is a relay. So relay, it is a binary actuator because it has only two stable states. Either it will be connected or energized, or else it is deconnected and de-energized. So this relay is acting as a mediator to perform some event. So if it is in a energized state, then the input part or the other part of the IoT based system is connected to the output unit. Otherwise, if it is de-energized, then there won't be any contact. So the relay is an actuator, binary actuator, which states the status of the output. Either it may be in the on condition or it may be in the off condition, or else the same thing can be represented as 0 or 1. So if it is in the one state, then the output is present or the output will be displayed. If it is 0, then there is no output because of there is no contact between the input part and the rest part of the IoT based system and the output part. So if there is no contact, then no output. So that is why relay we can consider it as an example of a binary actuator. Whereas there are some actuators in which which provides the continuous output. So in that case, it won't be only the discrete values, but the entire thing, the continuous values of the output, we are going to get it, and such actuators are called continuous actuators, and the best example for this is a motor. Motor can be of any type, but however it provides the continuous values of the output, not only this but along the 360 degrees of axis, along 360 degrees. So that is why we can consider the motor as a continuous type of actuator. And there are many uses or applications of these actuators. It might be it is used in the flight control system, in an aircraft, process control systems, in nuclear reactors, power plants, etc. So here we can find the different types of use of the different types of actuators. So this table shows the exact differences between the different types of the sensor and the actuator. So what are exactly the differences between the sensor and the actuator? We have seen what is the use of sensor, what is a sensor, what are the uses of sensor in the previous class. Now we will see how these two can be separated, or how the difference between the sensors and the actuators can be recognized. So first point is the basic difference, that is, it is used to measure the continuous and discrete process values variable, whereas just observe what is the use of the sensor. Sensors are used to detect the particular parameters from the physical environment. So it can just monitor also, it can measure also, but there is no driving force. But unless there is no driving force, then what is the use of data collection through sensors? So if there is any driving force or triggering activity, then only some events can happen in the IoT applications. That is why we see the need of actuators in the IoT based projects or IoT based applications. So that function, that is triggering some event or driving the force to perform some activity, that is the function of the actuators. So we can say this is the basic difference. Sensors only can sense the physical parameters from the environment, and they can monitor also, but it will not make the system to work, because the driving force or the triggering action, it is performed by only the actuators. Hence, this is the basic difference. It is used to measure the continuous and the discrete variables, whereas the actuators drives the continuous and discrete processes parameters. So this is the basic difference. Then next difference is where all we can find the sensors in the IoT applications, and where all the actuators are used in the IoT applications. So usually the sensors are used at the input port, and whereas the actuators are used at the output port, because we know that the sensors convert the physical parameters into electrical signals, and sensors convert some physical parameters into electrical signals, and these electrical signals will be finally converted into output by using the actuators. So in this way, these are used, the sensors are used or they are required at the input side, and the actuators are required at the output side, because these are the ones, the actuators are the ones which are going to give us the output. And next, one more difference is the outcome. The outcome of this is the sensor is the electrical signal, because the physical parameters will be converted into electrical signals, whereas the output of the actuators will be heat or the motion. So in this way, we are interested to get the output, and that is the function of the actuator. Providing the output or converting the appropriate electric signals into appropriate output is the function of the actuators. Then the examples for this is, for the sensors are magnetometers, cameras, accelerometer, microphones. Other than this also, yesterday or in the previous class we have seen many examples. There are different types of sensors and we have seen several examples for this. And you may be new with this word, that is the magnetometer. So what is the, try to find out what is the use of magnetometer sensor, what it exactly measures. So this is like an assignment for you, and also find what is the solenoid, because again you are familiar with the different types of actuators like LED, light emitting diode, then laser, loudspeaker, motor, controllers, etc. You are familiar with these words, but only thing is try to find out what is the use of this sensor, magnetometer sensor, and also try to find out what is the use of actuator, which is the solenoid. So this information is easily available, so try to find it out, what is the use of magnetometer and what is the use of solenoid. So these are some basic differences between the sensors and the actuators. So next we will study only two types of actuators, and this is one among that is the relay. So this is also known as a relay switch, and in this relay is actually the old version of these relays were using the electromagnets, but now semiconductor devices are also used in order to manufacture the relay switches. So this is particularly because basically when it was invented, it was made of the electromagnet, and it was that is why it was considered as an electric equipment, I can say, and it consists of two input terminals and multiple control signals. So the input terminals are used to connect this to a input side of the device, and it has a set of operating contact terminals, and it has a number of the contacts in multiple contact forms known as, for example, the make contact, break contact, or combinations of these two, etc. So it has some input terminals and it has some output terminals, and if there should be any connection, then the relay, whenever the relay is an actuator, whenever it wants to create some output or convert the electrical signal into output, then this relay make the contacts between the two parts of the IoT applications. Otherwise, if it doesn't want to display the output, then that contact will be, you can say, tore off. So in this way, we can find that the relay can make the circuit to work or to connect or to disconnect. So that happens through the multiple input terminals. So relay basically it is used in the telegraph, telephone exchanges, and also the early computers made use of these type of relays to perform various logical operations. Now the examples of these relays, they are used in the servo motor, stepper motor, DC motor, linear actuators, relays, solenoid, etc. Totally, we can say that these are the examples of the relay type of the actuator. You can see the diagram of a relay. So here there are, here you can find there are two input terminals and also the multiple output terminals, which are showed by this PN. The three terminals are showed here. And the next type of actuator that is mentioned in your syllabus is the servo motor. So servo motor, as I told you, there are two types of actuators, binary actuator and continuous actuator. So this servo motor, it is an example of a continuous actuator because its output is provided, or the output is provided which covers the 360 degrees of rotation. So movement you can anytime measure along with some particular axis and also with some angle. So servo motor, it is not any specific type of motor, but it is used as an continuous actuator. You can see the diagram of a servo motor, and it is a rotary actuator or linear actuator which allows the precise control of the angular or linear motion, velocity and acceleration. So whenever you want to control the movement of some object along 360 degrees, then you can make use of this servo motor as the continuous actuator in your IoT based application. So however, the servo motor is often used to refer to a motor suitable for use in the closed loop control system. So whenever you want to make use of the closed loop control system, then you can make use of this continuous actuator. So applications of this servo motor actuator, we can find it in robotics, because robot can also make its movement along 360 degrees. So we need this type of actuator. The movement of the particular robot can be identified by using this particular actuator, and CNC machines and even automated manufacturing. So even in automobiles also, for the movement of the vehicle, we can make use of this type of actuator. So this is about the various sensors and the actuators. Now at the beginning we have seen that there are some important components of the IoT based application, which includes the sensors, actuators, and the microcontrollers and the communication modules and the power source, etc. And in addition to that, it makes use of various communication technologies like Zigbee, Wi-Fi, etc. So as the sensors and the actuators play a vital role in the IoT applications, similarly we can find that it requires to communicate with the cloud computing. That is, IoT, the things or the objects in the Internet of Things, that is IoT, they do not have any capacity to work on its own. Or without the Internet, the things or the objects of IoT do not have any meaning, because things are only have a bare minimum capacity of connecting to the Internet. But other than that, what the things or the objects can do, because they are the static entities, the things or the objects in the IoT field, in the IoT application, we can say that they are static. They cannot do anything, only except they have the capacity to make it connect with the other things. But other than that, they cannot do anything on their own. So that is why we say that unless the data captured from the sensors, it doesn't have any value for that data that is collected or the gathered. So unless it is sent to the, or unless it is communicated with the other devices or else with the other systems, then it doesn't have any meaning. So the data collected should be converted into a valuable information, and this can happen only when the data collected is communicated over the internet. Then these components or the components of the IoT systems, they are contributing a large mass of data. Then where this data should go? So every object or everything or this will be creating, this is creating a large mass of data, and we need a space to store all this data. So that is why we always see that the cloud computing, cloud we are going to use for that only. The large mass of data that is created can be stored on the cloud, and whenever, as and when it is required for the particular IoT application, it can be borrowed from the cloud by paying some amount. So in this way, we can see that there is a great association between the cloud computing and the IoT. So what is cloud computing? So the cloud computing, it is nothing but it is a set of service. So we can say that it provides the delivery of on-demand computing services from application to storage and processing power. So we say that it is the cloud computing, it is capable of providing the services, and the services can start from the data storage. So from storage to the processing power, the cloud computing can be used. So it provides a large set of services to the needy users, and this can work by paying whenever it wants the user, whenever the IoT application needs the use of the cloud computing. So they can pay and use the service of the cloud. So in this way, we can see that there is a great association between the cloud computing and the IoT. So this provides some advantages, that is no need to invest for the infrastructure of the clouds, and there is no complexity of maintenance, because there are many cloud service providers, and any IoT application which wants to use the cloud services, you can take the benefit of the cloud service providers and make use of that by paying the amount. So in this way, there are two advantages of this making use of the cloud service from the cloud service provider. Basically, you need not invest for the infrastructure to have your own cloud, and also it avoids the complexity that is involved in maintaining of the cloud. So in this way, we can make use of the cloud computing by paying some amount to the cloud service providers. It also, other than providing the required service, it also ensures about the security and the privacy. That is, cloud solutions makes the implementation of the security measures easy, because they make use of some robust encryption and the decryption standards. So by using these encryption and decryption standards, they are making use of, they are taking care of even the security of the application. So in this way, we have many advantages of using the cloud computing, and nowadays getting the access to the clouds has become very easy and cheap. That is why still we can still the many IoT based applications can make use of cloud computing and can reduce their complexity of working. So in this way, the cloud computing, and this is the association between the cloud computing and the we can say the IoT. Now we can see how this IoT service so this diagram illustrates where the IoT service and IoT system. So in between, in this diagram, you can see that the IoT service, it acts like a platform for providing various services exclusively targeted for building the IoT application. So it offers the capacity of the data collection, which will be the required data. Collected data can be stored in the database, you can find that this IoT service is associated with a database which consists of large volume of data that is created by various components of the IoT applications, and also it is associated with the IoT device, because finally the IoT devices are going to perform some function towards the running of the particular application. So it requires the association of the IoT devices, and also you can see that the data analytics that can be part of an IoT service, and also finally it is associated with the end user application. So we can see that the collected data can be stored in the database, and we can visualize the data collected in the form of some charts. So for that we can say that the analytics is used, data analytics is used, and it has the ability to create the plugins. The required plugins or some plugins are required in order to execute some programs or in order to program the microcontrollers that are present in the IoT based systems, and also some apps are required for this to perform the given task of the IoT systems, and also main thing is it should have the collaboration with the internet. As I told you, unless there is no communication between the various things or the objects that are present in the IoT system, the data collected or gathered is of no use. So in order to connect various things or objects which may be located in different areas, then it requires mainly the connection of the internet, or else the social network is necessary. So for that, the IoT service, it should also look into the collaboration with various web services, social networks through the other APIs. So in this way, the IoT service, in order to provide some service or in order to execute in order to execute the given task by the IoT system, the IoT service, it plays a major role, because it should have the collaboration with the database, it should have a collaboration with the IoT devices, it should have the collaboration with the data analytics and also the end user application. Then only IoT application can perform to its maximum. So the output can be maximized only when there is a great association between all these. So now from this diagram you can understand how IoT service is important, because basically IoT, we can say that it is a combination of various technologies. It is not a single technology. Various technologies are collaborated, and then only IoT can provide some functions as required by the user. So it is a combination of various technologies. So this IoT service, because of this IoT service, then it is possible to perform or it is possible to get the expected results or the expected performance from the IoT based application. Now IoT, in order to provide some services to the IoT applications, there are some specific services, like for example COSM. COSM is a service which provides that service to the various IoT applications, and similarly ThingSpeak. ThingSpeak, it is also an open source application, and also it is an API to store and retrieve data from the things using HTTP over the internet. So we know that by the end of 2020, 50,000 objects are going to be included in the internet or in the IoT, So how do all these 50,000 objects can be connected to the internet? So in order to connect, or in order to, whenever any one object wants to communicate with the other, then it should happen through the internet connection. So in order to include all these components into the IoT or objects into the IoT, then definitely it requires the internet connection. So how this service is or how this communication is provided between the various objects that are included in the IoT. So in order to provide the communication, it should make use of an API. So, and that too it should be open source, because otherwise investing too much amount is heavy. Definitely it is difficult for all the users. So whenever the users wants to make use of this IoT to get the applications like smart home, smart city, etc., then it should work out cheaper also. So when it is available at the cheaper rate, then every user wants to get access this facility. So that is why we can say that if, and there should be, in order to communicate, in order to have the collaboration between the various components of IoT, then it should make use of an API, and that should be open source. So one such example of open source API for the IoT applications is the ThingSpeak. So ThingSpeak, it makes easier to store and retrieve the data from the various things or the objects using HTTP over the internet or via a LAN. But the core element of ThingSpeak is the channel. So before you want to send or retrieve data from the other objects, first you have to create a channel. Then once you create the channel, then what all things are included in that? So a channel, it can store the data we send to the ThingSpeak, and it comprises of the various elements like this. So it has 8 fields for storing the data of any type. So 8 fields are reserved for storing the data, and this data can be used, 8 fields can be used to store the data from a sensor or from any embedded device. So what type of data will be stored? The data type can be anything, but the data should have come to this ThingSpeak from various sensors or else any embedded device related to that particular IoT application. So 8 fields are reserved for storing that data, and it has 3 location fields which are related to the latitude, longitude, and also the elevation. So these 3 fields are reserved for storing the data related to the latitude, longitude, and the elevation. And whenever, usually if various things are connected through IoT, then keeping track of the movement of a particular object becomes very easy, because through the internet connection or through the GPS, you can find it out wherever you can track any particular the movement of the object also. So in this way, these 3 location fields, it makes the tracking of a particular object very easy. So it can store 8 fields to store the data, and 3 location fields which indicates about the longitude, latitude, and also the elevation. This makes the tracking of a particular object easy, and 1 status field. So this status field, it consists of a short message to describe the data stored in the channel. Only 1 status field bit is used, which indicates about the status of that data that is stored in that. And to use the ThingSpeak, first you have to sign up, and as soon as you sign in, you can create a channel. And once you create the channel, then you can send the data and allow the ThingSpeak to process it, and also it can retrieve the same. You can retrieve the data whatever you need. So in this way, unless you create the channel, ThingSpeak will not provide any type of service. So ThingSpeak, it is an open source API through which you can communicate with the other objects. So the related data, to store the related data, it makes use of all these things. That is 8 fields to store information about the data, 3 location fields to store the latitude, longitude, and the elevation, and 1 is related to the status field. So in this way, what is ThingSpeak finally? It is an API. It is an open source API and through this you can send and retrieve the information among the various things or objects. Then let us study more about the ThingSpeak, because this is the most widely used, we can say, API for communicating for having the communication between the various objects in the IoT. So ThingSpeak, it allows us for easier integration with the web services, because as I told you, in order to distribute the information or in order to send or retrieve the information among the various objects, it requires a web service. So the ThingSpeak should also have an integration or collaboration with the web services, different web services. So this will also be easy if you make use of ThingSpeak, and they should have communication between the social network and the ThingSpeak. So everything will be easier if you make use of the ThingSpeak. And some of the apps that are provided by the ThingSpeak are ThinkTweet. So ThinkTweet, it allows you to post messages to the Twitter. As the name indicates, ThinkTweet means you can post the messages, you can send the messages onto the Twitter via the ThingSpeak. And ThinkHTTP, it allows you to connect to the web services, and the functions that are, methods that are used are get, put, post and delete. So these methods of HTTP are used for the communication. And tweet control, through this you can monitor your Twitter feeds for a specific keyword and then process that request. So in this way you can make use of the tweet control. And it also provides a service called the React. So it sends a tweet or a trigger, a HTTP request when the channel meets a certain condition. So if you provide that condition, what is that condition? Then as and when that particular condition is met, then it reacts to that. That is, if the condition is met, then it sends a tweet. So these are few services provided by the ThingSpeak. Other than that, we have still few more, that is TalkBack. So use this app to queue up the commands and then allow a device to act upon these. So the messages can be queued up, and then finally the commands can be queued, and then later it will be processed. Then time control, using this app we can do a ThinkTweet, ThinkHTTP or a TalkBack at specified time in the future. We can also use this to allow these actions to happen. Then, so finally we can say that ThingSpeak is very, very commonly used service, or it is an API in order to for all the IoT based applications. Now we have seen which are the components of an IoT based application and how the IoT devices or systems provide the service. And for that, in order to provide the services, or in order to get the services from the IoT based system, what it should have? It should make use of an open source API. And basically the IoT service, it is having the association with all the rest part of this technologies, or it is having the collaboration with all the other technologies, and through the internet basically it is going to communicate with all the other things or objects in the environment. Then apart from that, you know that in addition to the sensors and the actuators, microcontrollers can be called as the brain. Brain of the IoT system is the microcontroller. So why the microcontroller is called the brain? Because it has the capacity of processing the input, and these microcontrollers can be programmed. In order to provide some function, it needs the programming. So microcontrollers definitely can provide all the functions that you need, that the users need through the IoT application. But how the microcontroller should provide the required function? In order to provide some services, or in order to get some services from the IoT application, basically it needs the data, and that data will be provided by the sensors. It can sense it or it can measure it from the physical environment. So the input is fine, but in order to get the required function as output, it has to be processed. No, the input parameters have to be processed. Then who will do that? Because sensors collect the information or the parameters from the physical environment, then actuators drive them, trigger some event. That is also fine, but finally there should be somebody or someone who will do the processing, and always you, the computer engineers, know that the processing is always performed by some processing unit. So this processing unit in IoT based applications are nothing but the microcontrollers. So microcontrollers can perform this processing, that is converting the input parameters into output. So while studying the actuators, I told you that it converts the electrical signals into the output. But who is responsible for this actual conversion? Actuators cannot directly, or it cannot convert these electrical signals into output without the help of the microcontroller. Finally, microcontroller is the one which can convert the input parameters or input electrical signals into output. So that is why how the microcontrollers can perform this processing. So it is a processor, so it has to be programmed. Unless it is programmed, even microcontroller cannot provide the required output. So programming of the microcontroller is essential. And as microcontroller, the popular use of the microcontroller is in embedded systems. So this embedded systems make use of embedded C for programming of the microcontroller. So we are going to write some embedded C programs to program the microcontroller. So we can say that the software used for programming of the microcontrollers are simple, low cost, and they are cross-platform. That is the most commonly used. There are few microcontrollers, there are many number of microcontrollers that you can use depending on your IoT application. We can say one such most commonly used is Arduino, or you can use even Raspberry Pi also. So there are many microcontrollers that you can make use of that. But here in our syllabus, we are going to use the Arduino. As per our syllabus, we are going to study about the Arduino. So how to program this Arduino microcontroller, and what are the advantages of this? The advantages are, it is cheaper, and also it is simple. The programming is also simple, and also it is cross-platform. That is, if you write and execute some program using embedded C on any operating system, it can also work fine for the other operating system also. So it is cross-platform. So there is no problem of executing these programs written using the Arduino. This works fine with all other platforms. So these are the now we will see some simple examples of programming the Arduino. So one such example, it says about how to program, how to send the data to the serial monitor. That is, we will write an embedded C program, send the data to the microcontroller, to the serial monitor. The serial monitor, it is a device on which you can monitor the messages that you want to send. So we will see a small program. So this requires, before you make use of the serial monitor, what is serial monitor? Monitor we know, that is monitor is a area where we can display the data or the message that we want to send. Then what is the serial monitor? Since the monitor, it receives the data bit by bit, we can also call it as a serial monitor. So before you make use of the serial monitor to send any data on that or display on that, then first it has to be initialized. So it requires the initialization. Then you have to make use of some function through which you want to display the data. So some functions are required, the use of this serial monitor. So before you make use of the serial monitor, it has to be initialized. So what this initialization indicates? The initialization indicates about the baud rate. As I told you, is a serial monitor, that is, it is going to receive the data bit by bit. So we want to know what is its baud rate. So what is baud rate? Usually you might have heard about the bit rate also. The bit rate and the baud rate, generally they have the same meaning, but still they are different. That is, bit rate and baud rate both are different. Bit rate, it indicates how many number of bits per second it can send and receive. Whereas baud rate, it indicates that bit rate into the number of bits per second. So in this way, there are two terms called bit rate and the baud rate, and they can be during the initialization of the particular serial monitor. In this case, we need to define, or we need to initialize this, or we have to fix up this baud rate first, and then make use of the function in order to perform the given task. That is, if we want to send the data to the serial monitor, then that requires use of a particular function. So there are two steps in this. Before writing the program, we have to initialize the baud rate, and we make use of some specific functions to transfer the data to the serial monitor. So we will see these two programs in the next class.